and rewarding journey of child rearing. Parenting tips on Nationwide at 90 FM, the revolution in media.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. If you live downtown in a Tibari garden, or if you live uptown a Cherry garden, yo, equal rights under the law. You hear? Equal rights under the law. My youth, remember the rights of the children. It's unlawful not to educate them. Don't ever do nothing to hurt them. Protect them from crime.
Welcome. It's another beautiful Monday afternoon. This is Let's Start Justice. My name is Michael Jackson, Executive Director of JFJ.
And I'm Jade Williams, Policy Research and Advocacy Specialist at Jade. Manager at JFJ.
We need to shorten that title, it seems. But thank you so much to those who are joining us via Radioland, those on the Nationwide YouTube page, and those on the JFJ YouTube page as well. We certainly are quite happy that you're with us, and we're going to be discussing a topic that has been in the news cycle for some time this week. And the title that we have here is Striking the Balance of Law and Lives, and we're joined by Hugh Faulkner, who is the Commissioner of the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM for short. But before we go to Mr. Faulkner, and thank you so much for being here with us, just to take care of some business first.
All right, so as you said, this topic today is striking the balance of law and lives. Normally we would have started with our commentary for the week that was, but we are going to start first with our trivia question for today. So those of us who are tuning in on YouTube and IG for the trivia question, it's trivia time. Today's trivia question is related to INDECOM, and it is: what legislation did the INDECOM Act replace? So if you know the response to that, you can send it in our YouTube chat, or you can send it via our social media on Instagram at JA4Justice. Or did you know for this week is related to our topic, striking the balance of law and lives, and it speaks to the gradual decline that we had previously seen in security force fatalities from 2014 to 2016. There was a decrease from 258 deaths in 2013, but fatalities again peaked in 2017 to 18 before dropping to its lowest level ever in 2019 with 86 deaths. Since then, we would have seen 5 consecutive years where fatal shootings by security forces, primarily by the JCF, would have increased year on year. So in 2020 we saw a 34% increase, so from 86 to 115. In 2021 we saw a 10% increase from 115 to 127. In 2022, we saw a 5% increase from 127 to 134. And this, with 2023, we saw a 16% increase from 134 to 155 fatalities.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jade. And that perhaps is a segue into what has been happening in the news cycle last week. Now, for those who follow our social media pages, you would recognize that since the start of 2025, we have been noting our concerns with the increasing fatal shootings that we have seen coming from members of our security forces, most of which involved the Jamaica Constabulary Force. So, for example, a few weeks ago, we recorded the Indicom numbers that we had 43 fatal shootings in 44 days, which is a cause for concern. At that time, it was 120-something percentage increase. The 50 persons being killed in 50 days is a cause for concern for JFJ. And before we bring in Mr. Hugh Faulkner, I just wanted to set some perspectives from JFJ's standpoint. When we look at Jamaica's population rate, and let me preface my argument by saying that there are some who are arguing that we should not be speaking on the numbers by themselves, and we aren't. And let me say this. We have a population rate of 2.8 people living in Jamaica. The United States, they have a population size, I should say rather, of 340 million people living there. They have similar crime issues across different states, gang involvement, drugs, and so on. When you look at our numbers, as Jade just outlined them, 127 to 134 to 155 to 189, and then we look at the trend that we have been seeing since the start of 2025, wherein it would suggest, if this trend continues, and JFJ is very conservative to say that we may see 250 civilians killed by the end of the year. Now, why am I mentioning the U.S. population size compared to Jamaica's? In 2023, the United States recorded some 1,100 fatal shootings. 2024, the data vary to indicate 1,200 to 1,400 citizens killed in the United States. So let's put back the percentage here now. The United States has a population size that is 121 times bigger than Jamaica's. 121 times bigger than Jamaica's. Yet, their numbers of those who have been killed by police officers, law enforcement officer, is 7.5 times greater than ours. Because the US data for the year-to-date police killings stand at 185, but Jamaica's is at 50. That is what is alarming when you consider population size and country size here. But let's move beyond that. And let me say this for clarity. At no point have we ever here at JFJ been irresponsible enough to categorize these killings as extrajudicial. In fact, our statement that we made last week specifically said that we're not doing that. However, the numbers by themselves, one could argue that context matters, and it does. But how do we get context? We get context from independent accounts from witnesses, forensic evidence, and yes, the body-worn cameras would be instrumental in getting that. We have Mr. Faulkner here with us, and at some point I'm going to ask Mr. Faulkner just to speak to page 8 of the 2023 Indicom report, where that report from Indicom says no firearm, no weapons in some instances. You have some instances, very few though, where you may have individuals who are mentally ill. The point that we're making here is this. Every case must be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, but it is the footage from the body-worn cameras that would help with an independent account of what may have transpired during these incidents. JFJ, we receive complaints from citizens within communities that the police account of what happened in a confrontation is not what they recorded on their device or what they saw. Let us go back to Teron Hewitt. It was footage from a cell phone which saw something different from what the public may have thought may have happened. Romarius Sterling, that was last year. This was a young man where the CCTV footage showed him knelt down on his knees, hands behind his head, and then you heard a sound that appeared to be a gunshot. That was Romarius Sterling. Let's look at late last year. CCTV footage showed two men, presumably two police officers, who seemingly executed three men based on that footage. The question is, had that CCTV footage not been available, where would we be today with that case? Would we have been in the position to have charges being laid? These are questions we have to ask ourselves. The crime rate is high for all of our comfort, but I want to urge our listeners to appreciate that calling for police accountability should never be seen as anti-police or anti-Jamaican. The rule of law dictates that you have principles that we all uphold the law. The rule of law also dictates, let us not label everyone who comes in contact with the police as criminals. Because even if they are, if the police was not acting in self-defense or defense of others, you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the court system? We have to start thinking along that line, that yes, the police must defend themselves if someone is shooting at them or if there is a risk to other citizens who may be present. But calling for body-worn cameras should never be seen as somehow undermining the security forces. So JFJ, we remain resolute in our mission, and when we seek relevance on behalf of the voiceless. We seek relevance on behalf of people who have called our offices, like the mother of the 17-year-old recently, who was shot 5 times in his back, who had the wits to play dead. These are the citizens that JFJ provides support for. Help them navigate the court system. We have a court date coming up next week for Mario Dean on March 3. We support Mario Dean's family for him to get justice. We support the family of Matthew Lee, who was killed sometime in 2014. That court date is coming up in July, I believe. Let's look at the date, almost a decade later. That is the relevance that JFJ seeks for the families of those who have been killed by members of the security force. And we make no apologies for that at all. So when we talk about relevance, it's not self-interest. It's for justice, human rights, and rule of law. Jane?
Thank you for that, Mikhail. Well, Damien poignantly pointed out we should take the break. So we'll quickly take the break, and when we come back, we'll pick up with Mr. Faulkner.
Strong financial records are the backbone of every successful business. Let Dodge & Global handle your accounting needs from bookkeeping to financial reporting so you can focus on growth. Call us at 876-929-3670 or 876-926-5210. Email us at info@dodgen.global or visit us at dodgen.global. Dodge & Global, we make numbers work for you.
Do you have a consumer-related issue? Want to learn more about matters concerning you as a consumer? Well, keep it locked to Nationwide 90 FM for the Consumer Hour with me, Nora Gay Banton. Weekdays from 9 to 10 a.m. For all your consumer-centric matters, stay tuned to the Consumer Hour on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We're discussing striking the balance between law and lives. We are joined by the Commissioner of the Independent Commissions of Investigations, INDECOM, Mr. Hugh Faulkner. And the context of the conversation is really, we're looking at an increasing number of fatalities, and we're also looking at an absence of body-worn cameras in a lot of these. I know that INDECOM has made some general calls in this area. If you could just remind our audience what INDECOM's position is on the body-worn cameras, firstly.
Right. Thanks for having me. And the Commission, our entire team, we're of the view that body-worn cameras are an essential, necessary, and ultimately mandatory aspect of security force operations. We're speaking of accountability, and in your preface you had mentioned the rule of law. And what the rule of law does is to assure the citizen of Jamaica that regardless of any high office that you hold, any institutional power, authority that you have, you're subject to law. So rule of law means law rules. So it supersedes the authorities. Now, the security forces play an important role in any country in terms of maintaining law, order, public order. But the security forces are also equipped with immense powers. You know, the powers of arrest, the powers of search under particular circumstances. They are armed with small arms and heavy weaponry. They can enter your premises, especially during emergency powers without a warrant. So immense powers. So it is important that an oversight mechanism is there to ensure that where there are reported infractions, then the security forces too are subject to accountability. Now, body-worn cameras, the world over, I wouldn't say 100%, and in some instances, let's be honest, there was resistance, because even within the United States, there were certain police unions that were, reluctant to embrace the concept. But more and more, the concept is being accepted that body-worn cameras play a valuable role in investigation, that you can be fully and completely thorough in your investigation. Yes, you can investigate to a point, but in many instances, in our experience, the sole eyewitness is deceased. So what you will be left with in those instances are singular accounts. There are instances also when, mental illness can affect just about anybody. There are instances when the victim, even if alive, is laboring under mental, challenges and would not be able to coherently and chronologically give you an account. So again, body-worn cameras. For the officers themselves, body-worn cameras can provide footage that they too can review their operational strategies and their interactions, etc., for training purposes. So we are 100% in support of body-worn cameras, and the sooner the better. Body-worn cameras, they give you a neutral account. They are independent. The reports are independent, and it gives an impartial view. The thing is, the human being can embellish a story, regardless what's your station in life. You can leave out, you can add to your description of an incident. Now, the body-worn camera, it provides investigative help. So you might see that it was a red car that came up, and it can provide evidential help in court. Now, it's not just submitted and the court accept it and etc. There are certain safeguards in place for the public, for the officer, that must be satisfied before the body-worn evidence is admissible.
Yes. I'm happy you outlined that. But you know, there is the view, because I've been paying attention to some of the conversations happening on social media over the weekend, and there is the view that yes, we need to get the body worn cameras eventually, but it won't prevent and hamper or hinder your investigation in any significant way, and you can proceed without it. Those
Right.
are some of the sentiments.
All right, let me just, and you know, all views contend, and I am willing to give each perspective, you know, a listening ear. Now, notwithstanding the universal outlay of body-worn cameras, the committed, diligent staff of Indicom carried through their investigations. We do not celebrate acquittal. We do not celebrate an outcome where it is adverse to the security forces, because
Yes.
we just have to be impartial, independent, and objective.
Yes.
Now, for 2024, I have with me a list of 24 rulings for charge. This amounts to approximately, if you average it out, my maths is not the best in the class, but it works out to neatly 2 charge per month. But let us say, of the 24 matters for charge, 3 involve Department of Correctional Services, primarily assault,
Yes.
that they are charged with. 1 JDF private who was charged in a fatal shooting, and this was the fatal shooting of Horain Glen at 97 Charles Street on the 16th of April 2022. Now, Jade and Mikkel, the rulings that we got in 2024 do not necessarily align with the calendar year.
I'm happy because I was about to ask you
Right.
to clarify that.
Right.
Yes.
So 2024, we would have gotten rulings for 2023 cases that we finished investigation submitted. But there was one matter that happened in 2024 where we got the ruling in 2024.
Yes.
Right. And that was the matter at 81 to 83 Windward Road. And this was the fatal shooting of O'Shane Stubbs, Keshane Smith, and Orlando Campbell. In that matter, a corporal and a constable were charged, and the matter is before the court.
So just to put things in context, Mr. Faulkner, when we look at the charges that have been laid, 2022, any going beyond that particular year
For ruling,
for ruling?
all right, so just to incident date, the one with the DCS happened in March 2020. There was a matter of there was a fatal shooting in November of 2020. This is, let me just be right. This is in St. Thomas. Then there was 2022, 2022, 2021, 2022, 2023. Now, many of these matters, you have to await the, right, you have to go through postmortem, and you have to await the ballistics reports. Now, ballistics, you would be waiting either on biology, which could be human samples, chemistry, which could be gunpowder residue, and ballistics, which could be firearm, bullet fragments, etc. So you have to wait on the lab. So there will be a lag time, and to be fair, the lab is overwhelmed.
Yes.
The lab need transformational
Yes.
assistance to meet the demands in Jamaica.
So to hammer home the point, because I don't want our listeners to miss this. When you look at the years, the incident dates rather, 2020, 2021, 2022, and then we know that we have some resource challenges, it means that it would delay the information that you would need to get to a conclusion whether or not charges can be laid.
That is
But
so.
the one case that you had in 2024, the incident happened in 2024, the charges were laid in 2024 was as a result of CCTV footage. That's the one incident.
Right. What I'll say generally, Michael, is that CCTV footage would advance tremendously the investigative process. On the one hand, it could expose culpability, and on the other hand, it could highlight exoneration.
Yes.
So it is something that can work in the favor of the public, and it can work a law enforcement officer who is saying, I did everything according to my training, force orders, and the law of Jamaica. That body-worn camera can support you. So we're saying the law enforcement officers who are adamant on being compliant with law, acting by law, have nothing to fear
Yes.
for body-worn cameras.
Yes.
And it hastens the process of justice and investigation for law enforcement officers themselves. It removes some of the public mistrust in that there are conflicting versions of events when there is no footage, and at least this can settle the discussions, the debates, when an independent, unembellished account is presented by footage. Remember, there are safeguards. One, to ensure that the instrument of recording is in good working order, that it was not tampered
Yes.
with, it was not edited in any way, and that the author is known,
Yes.
the maker.
I wanted to bring you, I mentioned it when I was speaking earlier, page 8 of your 2023 report.
Yes.
Because I know you're not finished with 2024 as yet in that comprehensive way that you have done 2023. So some of the issues that we see here at JFJ is that, for example, the matter involved in St. Mary, we've already gotten comments from citizens saying that, listen, there was no shootout. This is what we saw happening. Lawrence Tavern, that questionable shooting that happened there. The citizens are saying, this is what I saw. They have their phones out, but the police is saying something else. Do you have any elements? Because I made mention at page 8, sorry. Can you clarify what you have there in terms of firearms at scene, what the police may be saying versus what citizens are saying, and so on?
Right. So some of the matters you have mentioned, Michael, are being investigated, and we have done everything to ensure that all the witnesses who have a part of or an entire narrative to give are accommodated, including the officers to be interviewed under our Section 21, and for the officers to give statements, and where it elevates itself to that, where there's a question and answer, otherwise referred to as a judge's rule interview with the officers. So we take every step. Now, one of the things with fatalities that we must not escape our mind, as I look at the statistics that you asked me to.
Mr. Faulkner, hold that thought. We have to take the break, but when we return, I just wanted to go through the stats.
Yes.
Firearm, weapons found at scene,
Yes.
implications of that, and the need again for body-worn cameras.
Yeah.
At the Jamaica Customs Agency, we care for our employees, customers, stakeholders, citizens, and our country. Customs cares. The temperature by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
31 degrees Celsius here in Kingston and 28 out west in Montego Bay.
Dancehall week, nah, and can't miss me. February 23 to March 2, one full week of dancehall activities.
New style and style.
Cliff Hughes Online are there at the Ronnie Williams Entertainment Center on February 26 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the official Dancehall Village to help celebrate dancehall. Follow back on me and come celebrate the dancehall culture at the Cannabis Village. Seminar and workshop are there. Food and shopping village and the official opening of the Dancehall Museum. If you wanna hold, catch me side at Cliff Hughes Online. Me a dance and I go with a bag of things. Them a go have dance workshop and boot camps, and guess what? It's free all week. Go down now. And don't forget the dancehall fashion frenzy on Friday and the dancehall street parade, plus the big bad corrosing after party on Sunday. Me, Affidede. It can't miss me, and if you miss it, that rough. But don't worry, Cliff Hughes Online I got there for make you know the pre. You see, February 26, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM. Oh, we are the revolution in media.
Dancehall and me everything.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We're here with Mr. Hugh Faulkner, the Commissioner of Indicom. Before the break, I was just asking Mr. Faulkner to speak to our listeners about the allegations, or not me say allegations, the discrepancies at times that may occur between a police officer's account versus that of a citizen regarding firearms or weapons found at scene. And so on. Mr. Faulkner, can you just walk us through what your page 8 report
Right, so in 2023, we tabulated 155 citizens being killed in security force involved altercations, fatally injured by firearm.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 155, 104 instances, firearms were recovered. In 27 other cases, a weapon other than a firearm was recovered. And in another 24, no firearm or other weapon recovered.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that same year, so we had 155 who were fatally injured, and 99 were injured. Of the 99, 8 firearms were recovered. And then in 27 of the cases, a weapon other than a firearm. So 35 of 99. So 99 people dead, 35 weapons recovered, 8 firearms, and 27 other. That other could be machete, knife, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then in 64 of the injured, no weapon was recovered.
Yeah, I'm thank you so much for laying that out. Because, you know, as I've stated publicly, we have to look at each case based on their own unique facts.
Yes.
But we can't also be naive to some of the allegations that have plagued our members, and we stand with our security forces. But again, when the calls come at our door and you hear something contrary to the account of our security force officers, well, let me speak for us as a human rights organization. We have to listen. And again, we guide people through the process and say, make your reports to Indicom, make your reports to iProbe, and Indicom will do their good work. But Jade, I know you had a comment on Indicom, because the role of Indicom came up in the discussion last week, that by us flagging Mr. Faulkner the concerns about the numbers, we were somehow undermining the work of Indicom. So I know you had a question about the role of Indicom with investigation and, you know, to how far Indicom is able to go based on its mandate.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I think it would be valuable for Mr. Faulkner to clarify for our listeners, I don't think people have a fulsome understanding that while Indicom, yes, it does its independent investigations, Indicom essentially makes a recommendation at the end of that. And it is then in the purview, or maybe I have it wrong. You can clarify. Is in the purview of these other authorities now to make a decisive action that we as the ordinary citizen would count as an accountability action. So what do you say to that? Is it our investigative body, or does it do more?
Yes. All right. So let me indicate that in the earlier days of the legislation, and this maybe is a pattern with all new legislations. When the legislation is new, you have a flurry of challenges for various reasons,
Yes.
constitutionality, etc. Now, likewise, the Indicom Act went through the same flurry of legal inquiries, especially by the Jamaica Police Federation. And the Privy Council ruled that final ruling. Before that ruling, the decisions had gone either way. Yes, Indicom has the power of arrest and prosecution. No, Indicom doesn't have the power of arrest and prosecution. The Privy Council settled the matter, which is on the hierarchy of courts, is our highest court.
Yes.
And the ruling is that Indicom, you're an investigative body. Your prosecutorial arm is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. That is why we have to submit our files to the DPP. In instances where there are body-worn cameras, you may find that even though your ballistics and your biology and your chemistry results can help to further the case or to establish whatever position you have taken, the body-worn cameras could have helped to expedite the matters in the interest of justice. Now, in 2024, as I indicated to you, we had 24 matters that were ruled for charge. This is tied with the highest for any given year for Indicom. So, as I indicate, your only measure is not for charge, but I still have to commend the diligent and effective staff of Indicom, because even without all the amenities that can further an investigation, they were able to rule in some instances that this does not amount to a charge, and in 24 cases, 2 per month, that a charge should be laid.
But I want to clarify something, Mr. Faulkner. The language of ruled for charge, is that ruled for charge by the
DPP.
the DPP?
Yes, the DPP rules that we have read this case, and from what we have read, Constable X or Private Y should be charged for the offense of
Okay,
X
so
or Y.
how
And
many?
then
Okay, go ahead.
the protocol requires, because the powers of arrest reside with the security forces, so the internal affairs section of the security forces would effect the charge and the
Yes.
matter placed before the
So, for
court.
example, that case that happened last year,
Right.
with the CCTV
Yes.
footage and so on, Indicom did
Right.
its investigation,
Yes.
had its finding,
Right.
made recommendation to DPP. The police had to effect the arrest.
Effect the
Yeah.
arrest. So, notwithstanding that rule, it was an Indicom investigation.
Absolutely.
So, even some of the cases that you have mentioned earlier, the Indicom investigation led to the ruling for charge. The charge. There are instances when we work also with the security forces jointly, depending on the nature of the matter,
Yes.
and other investigative bodies, depending on the technical or other expertise that a matter requires.
But
Is-
can you, before Jade, just can you clarify for me how many cases Indicom made a recommendation for charges to be laid versus how many were ruled for charges?
Right. I think we are ending up at about 80%
Oh,
usually.
that's an improvement.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, usually about 77 to 80% of our recommendations are, the DPP's ruling conform with our recommendation.
And when the charges are laid now, where do we go with that continuum in terms of prosecution and conviction? What is the rate there if you were to follow through?
Right. So the actual charging would be the prosecution. But, Michael, we have to be realists. having done the investigation, having established the ingredients for a prosecution, the prosecutorial authority ruling that somebody is to be charged, we cannot take any responsibility for the outcome.
Yes.
Remember, you're speaking of law enforcement against a civilian. Again, if we are to be clear and fair, there are instances when the deceased has an antecedent and the law enforcement officer is the one in the prisoner's dock. We have no control over how a jury rules. And maybe data across the world might tell you that if you look at fatalities committed by civilians, fatalities committed by officers, the fatalities allegedly committed by officers carry a lower. So that's in the
A lower
hands-
conviction rate, because the last time we checked it was about 5%.
Yes.
So when it comes to we having done the investigation, establish that the ingredients for a charge are present, submit the file, the DPP rules in favor of a charge. The part with the jury, we have no control over. Because you might find that in law enforcement cases, there are matters with even video footage. And the jury might find a decision which, you may struggle.
Antecedent.
You may
Criminal them.
you may struggle.
You can't say Mr. Faulkner, I can. Yes,
So-
Jade, you had a question.
Yeah. I think you essentially got to it, because I wanted to, for the listeners to simply have an understanding that Indicom completing its investigation and saying
So I have
the elements
24
are
here,
there.
Jade. And but as I said in our report, we'll tactfully and so that you do not expose any of your witnesses, etc. And the matters with fatalities, we'll put the names, etc.
Yes.
Yes, and thing. But the for last year, these are the charges. So it's 24 and they start that one. Not to go through the entire list. Number one, this was assault. DCS officer for assault. Fatal shooting and shooting injury. All of these are charged for last year. Fatal shooting, shooting injury, road collision injuries, assault, road death, fatal shooting, assault, discharge of firearm, assault, discharge of firearm, shooting injury. Go down the line. So the other year when I think we had 24 rulings for charge was in 2020. I think that year, half of it, COVID,
Yes.
stamped its feet, right? But in the regime where it has been ruled that the DPP is the prosecutorial authority, that was the other year when we had 24 rulings for charge. And we must also acknowledge the input of the DPP. As I told you, the police, the internal affairs section of the police help you with the effecting the arrest. But for the ruling, we have to also give credit to the DPP for their work too, because sometimes you have to move swiftly given the circumstances of the case.
Yes.
Because in these matters, there are 3 where the arrests have not been effected as yet.
Yeah.
Damien, are we up on the break? Right, I want us to take the break, but before we go, Mr. Faulkner, what I want us to pick up on, Jade, is the concern we collectively share on planned operations. Where we are with the increasing fatalities coming out of the planned operations, your 2022 versus 2023 versus what the data was saying for 2024, if you have that readily at hand, and then some more discussions again around the need for body-worn cameras.
The national budget is everybody's business because it impacts every Jamaican. The time brought to you by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service is
1:45.
Revamp your space with Unique Living sleek fixed and sliding shower panels, shower systems and faucets, stylish vanities, LED and non-LED mirrors, basins and kitchen sinks, closet and storage solutions, hanging aids, and more. Available in different finishes and sizes to match your style. Transform your space and visit us today at shop number 6, 30 Dunrobin Avenue, Kingston 10. Call us at 876-755-3661 or visit our website at uniquelivingja.com to shop.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. I'm just seeing some breaking news here from the Jamaica Observer that Valerie Nita Robertson, King's Counsel, has died. Wow, that's sad news. Our condolences to her family. That one is shocking.
Oh.
Yeah, our condolences, Valerie Nita Robertson, noted attorney, very vocal on issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My condolences also
Yes.
to Mrs. Robertson and her family.
All right. Whoa, sorry, I'm a little bit shaken by the news. Before the break, we wanted to have a conversation, Mr. Faulkner, with you on planned operations. What is the data saying in terms of the trajectory and the concerns from Indicom?
Right. So, just looking at the data, it has been erratic. The numbers have been erratic in terms of planned operations and fatal shootings. So, in looking at the last 5 years, in 2020, of the fatal shootings, 115 in 2020, 18% occurred in planned operations. In 2021, which was my second year, it went down to 9%. In 2022, come up to 23%. 2023 went back down to 15%. And I'm speaking from memory now, and I think for 2024, of the 189 fatalities, I believe 40% were police planned operations.
Yeah.
This, again, data, not conjecture, not opinion, not presumption, but data asks that body-worn cameras be equipped. Why? The planned police operations is actually within the purview and execution of the security forces. The security forces, one, you plan the time, the date, the location, all of that within your control. You can plan for medical emergencies, whether for civilian or law enforcement officer. You will, before the planned operation, you know where is the nearest clinic, where is the nearest hospital. You can choose which route. So if I live at Mango Tree Avenue, you might drive Guinea Tree Road to come to my house. You choose. So all the indices for planning are within the security forces.
And it does suggest, Mr. Faulkner, that when it's planned operations acting on intelligence,
Yes.
there is almost an element of surprise.
Not for the security forces.
Not for the security forces, but for the suspects.
Thank you.
And
Thank
if
you.
there is that element of surprise, based on our conversations with security experts, it would suggest that, even if there is a shootout, it should not be in the majority. So in other words, you should have injuries perhaps, more arrest, not more fatalities.
Right. So, but additionally, Michael, when it's a planned operation, depending on the requirements of that planned operation, specific training can be conducted prior to that that operation. All the intelligence regarding the process, all the risk assessment. So again, the planned operation should remove you from certain risks that an ad hoc confrontation brings. So all the obstacles, the limitations, can be figured in the planning. And as I said, medical, because if someone is injured, there's still a duty to ensure that that person gets medical attention in the quickest time and at the best and nearest location. But that planned operation must yield to the right to life and must be in accordance with all the principles of accountability. You must protect the person from arbitrary arrest or for fatality, which is unnecessary. And again, all these steps of accountability are in the interest of what our Charter of Fundamental Rights, the protection given to life for one and for all.
Yes. In these planned operations, were there any body-worn cameras?
From our data, I think in the last 2 years, I've seen one instance, and I think that was a shooting injury where there was a body-worn camera.
Yes.
But even
none,
if there
none for
is
police for fatal shootings.
Not from my recollection of the data, and you might find one that I had it, but it was not turned on, etc. But none.
Because your reports and we said this in our release, because we read your press statements from Indicom, we read your reports.
Yeah, we tend to be transparent in that way, and we include it in our reports.
Because there's a standard line that you have in there, that the reports indicate that no body-worn cameras were issued or either turned on.
Right, because we have upgraded our case management system. So more and more we can capture data. In the past, that technological capability was not there to have an expanded. So that was one of the first steps that during my tenure where we sought to expand, and the staff have warmed towards it and use it extensively to capture these, including body-worn cameras, including timelines, etc. Everything we can document and provide data for.
All right. Another question from me. You had one, Jade? No? Okay. Do you make an absolute statement that a percentage of the shootings are deemed lawful and justified?
Michael, I could probably foresee such a remark where you have a complete and fulsome account of what transpired. But at this stage, the Indicom will be overstepping to promise anything of that nature. What we can seek to do is to establish whether the evidence we have collected can lead to a charge, or the evidence we have collected do not lead to a charge. The matter might not lead to a charge, and yet on our investigative tabulation it remains suspicious.
Yes.
So for you to step forward to just give a broad brush exoneration, it would not be intellectually honest.
Because, and the reason I'm asking you this, Sir Faulkner, as I said, we've been getting the comments.
Yes.
And a noted enough individual said that Indicom deems some 95% or 96%, the individual quoted, of the fatal shootings as lawful. So I want to give you an opportunity to clarify.
I can understand that interpretation, because data is subject to interpretation. I think there was one matter where in that matter we had video footage, and it was an early morning, and it was an attack on a member of a law enforcement member. And in that, I think the footage of that illustrated that the officer had come under attack. But outside of that, as you know, the struggles we have. So while it would be And officers, I can see them, would wish for us to say it was lawful.
But I would ask you on their behalf, though, Mr. Faulkner, where the evidence is very clear that this was a lawful shooting, should the data start being compiled in such way?
I think if you're in a position so to make that declaration, then it would be good.
Yes.
But in instances, and many, where, as you indicate, there is not necessarily an eyewitness, happens inside a house or a room, the one potential civilian is deceased, there are sometimes a number of gaps that you are not able to close for you to go to that step. But if somebody had acted lawfully and it is manifestly clear and the evidence supports that, we have no challenge to say so.
Yes.
But in a number of instances, you gather possibly a percentage of what you can gather, and then there's a gap.
Thank you.
There is a comment here from YouTube, Mr. Faulkner, saying that we want world-class behavior from the JCF, but third-world behavior from our citizenry. There is another saying that the rules are there for a well-behaved child, but it can't be for bad behaving child. Something like that. I'm just reading from, I don't have the best eyesight.
Right.
YouTube. But you get the point. We're saying
Yes,
that's our
I mean,
culture of bad manism. So with bad behaving
that
and
comes
so
to
on.
us, Michael, sometimes from a supportive, sometimes from a, another perspective. But we have added in our budget for 2025 to establish community sensitization.
Yes.
Right now, for the past few years, in the we have the officer sensitization. So one of our key performance indicators is to ensure that our investigative teams meet with the security forces in their regions, and you have a number of hours of training to explain the Indicom Act. And so far, we have seen, better reception because of the 24 cases for charge last year. The officers comply to the arrest, move to go in custody.
Yes.
Go in custody. But the other side, we have not had community sensitization. So we have sought the equipment, etc., so that we can go to a town hall, a church hall, and have the community sensitization so that the citizens understands his or her rights, plus the behavior that is expected of the citizen, which does not escalate from a conversation to assault.
Yes.
I wanted to make a comment, Michael, because I feel like we, as citizens, the perception of what is a criminal or who is a criminal is extremely skewed. I think as long as a person comes in contact with the police at all, or citizenry thinks that it is okay for the police to engage with them in a way that may be fatal or may be injurious to them just on the basis of that engagement. And I think we have to always remember that people don't just engage with the police because the police are suspicious of them. They engage with the police for numerous reasons, and even in these interactions where they are not the subject of the investigation, they can and have been harmed. So it's not as though we are unaware of our cultural context. It is our cultural context why we are having this conversation.
I agree with our police commissioner. The officers have superior training, and it's because of that superior training that we expect them to act with the use of force and the law. But for those who are saying, no, we do sensitization sessions, listeners. Last year we trained over 10,000 individuals in their rights across the communities, telling them about their responsibilities as well. We do school interventions, reminding our youngsters not take up badness, and telling them about the child diversion, restorative justice programs. We do all of that community work. But listen, the powers that the state has, we have to note it. And that's what we do here at JFJ. We hold the state accountable to ensure that the rights of every single Jamaican citizen is so protected. But that's where we have to leave it. Mr. Hugh Faulkner, thank you so much. The Commissioner of Indicom. Jay, do you want to announce your trivia?
Yes, so the act that preceded the Indicom Act was the Public, hold on, let me read it. The Police Public Complaints Act.
You should have asked this stuff for
right? But news commentator did win, so we'll reach out to you via WhatsApp.
She wins every week.
Congrats, news commentator. Well done.
Right.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, listeners. Have a good day. My name is Michael Jackson.
And I'm Jade Williams. Thanks for joining us.
Right. Thank you very much. And let me just thank the hardworking staff of Indicom.
Beautiful.
Yes,
Thank you.
very good.
Jamaicans, by justice, the people's champion. Justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
Tune in to Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Stay ahead of the curve with our cutting-edge reporting and accurate breaking news coverage.
We're having an earthquake. Oh, God.
Hear it here first on Nationwide 90 FM. Tune in, turn up the volume, and listen. We bring a mix of news, entertainment, and sports to your life.